All right, take four. Hopefully this is working. I forget if I want to say my name. I think I did the first few times. This is Prapchandra Rundawa from Austin, Texas. It's 7:27 p.m. Sunday, December 19th. I'm trying to figure out how to stream stuff online. As part of which I would hope to talk to people and have conversations and capture. I don't know if I want to call it podcast. Maybe you can say a podcast that shall not be named. Still defining unplanned is kind of my way of doing things. But today, I think one of the broader things I want to start doing is sharing interesting and introspective type of stuff that you may not be able to get online. And I think that's mostly because a lot of the discussions that happen that are good by their very nature tend to be in smaller groups. And so what I'm trying to do here is create more smaller groups that discuss information and have an interesting take on stuff. So today I'm sharing or resharing, should I say, readings on Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, which is a clubhouse room earlier today between Sikh History Book Club and the Gurbani Book Club. I thought it was quite fascinating. I've been listening to Sikh History Book Club discussions for the last, I want to say, about a year now. And I think I look forward to it the most out of every single other social audio option available. So just trying to reshare that for today. And if it works out, if it's easy enough to do, then I should be able to do this more often. But here we go today, passing it on to Kanal, Manshan, and Seal, whose information I'd probably put in the description of something or something. Yeah, so have fun. Hopefully you like it as much as I did.
हाँ जी सो सत श्री अकाल साਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ माय नेम इज कुणाल मैं ज़्यादा इंग्लिश करूँगा क्योंकि कई जगह च मेरी पंजाबी मुक जाती है but Manshan and Sial can help. Me, Manshan, Sial, a couple of other friends, Jeet and Puneet, we have a clubhouse called Sikh History Book Club. And the idea started because we all like to read different texts of Sikh history, written by some of our favorite authors, let's say J.S. Garewal, Gurcharan Singh Talib, these kind of authors, which we felt were very important in exposing our itihas to a Sikh audience with a Sikh perspective and a Sikh worldview. But we're not really well known or well published in the West, where most of us live. So we started that club, and I think it's been about 6 months now or so, and we've gone through 4 or 5 books, a handful of articles, and are hoping to grow it day by day and get more people interested in reading primary text and secondary text by themselves and learning their itihas from sources other than what's given to them by, let's say, a government school or popular TV or something like that. So that's our story. What we're going to talk about today is the life of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about a few texts that we read. The primary text that we used is called Guru Tegh Bahadur, Background and Supreme Sacrifice. It's essentially a collection of about 20 essays in English that was published by Punjabi University in Patiala in, I think, late 1999, early 2000. It has a very elite group of scholars, very valuable piece of research, all in one volume. It's all very high caliber writing in different subjects regarding the life, Bani, and impact of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. Um, it's pretty valuable. I'm kind of surprised I never saw it before. I stumbled upon it by just searching online. And I think one of the Discover Sikhism website, which has a great treasure trove of PDFs that they've uploaded in Punjabi, English, and Hindi, that you guys can all kind of access yourselves. So the book we're reading, it falls into three distinct portions concerning the life work of the Guru, the essence of his teachings, and Sikhism or Sikhi, and its course up until today. So it relates to his ideal achievement of the character of the Sikh, and lastly, the study of his Bani from a philosophical and literary point of view. We also uploaded a couple other texts. One was a supplementary book by Fauja Singh and Gurcharan Singh Talib, and this one is called I will get the name right here. It's called Guru Tegh Bahadur, Martyr and Teacher. And this was, I think, first published in 1975 and then again in 1996. And this was again published by the Punjabi University Patiala publishing house. So those are the two primary texts. There's another book of Bani of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib's that Mashan was able to find, and we'll put a link up to that. And I think it has a little bit of commentary as well from looking at it. So, Mashan or Shal, did you want to add anything else before we kind of get started?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. No, nothing from me. Excited to be able to do this session, and thank you to the Gurbani Club for.
Hanji, I just have a comment on the scholars and just this generation of scholars generally. ਤੇ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਲੱਕੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ 50 60 70s ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੌਰ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਬੜੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਦਾ ਦੌਰ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੰਥ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ ਮਿਲੀ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੰਡਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜੇ.ਐਸ. ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜੀ.ਐਸ. ਤਾਲਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਰ ਅਬਾਊਟ 20-25 ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਨਰਲੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟਡ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਲਜਸ ਤੇ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟਡ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਿੰਗ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਟੈਕਸਟ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਟੈਕਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਸਮ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਆਡੀਅנס ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਪੰਥ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਓਵਰਆਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਗਲੋਬਲਾਈਜ਼ ਪੰਥ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਕ ਮਲਟੀਲਿੰਗੁਅਲ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਸ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਸ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਸੀ ਨਾਲ ਫਾਰਸੀ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਲੇ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਵੀ ਇਕੁਅਲੀ ਫਲੂਐਂਟ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਇੱਕ ਫੋਰਚੂਨੇਟ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਸੀ 50 60 70s 80s ਤੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਹੈ ਨੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜੇ.ਐਸ. ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਮਿਲੇ who are equally fluent in these three languages and who could transition the Sikh community from that phase ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਨਰਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਤੇ ਉਰਦੂ ਤੇ ਫਾਰਸੀ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਨਰਲੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਲੋਬਲਾਈਜ਼ ਪੰਥ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਬੁੱਕ ਇਸ 20 ਐਸੇਜ਼ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਬੁੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ they are all top cream of this generation we are of course going to discuss this book and we will discuss some aspects and themes that they have discussed but we highly encourage you to look at this book just for at least getting to know these scholars who exist ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵੇਖੋ ਤੇ you'll get to know who these scholars are and then maybe look at other books as Kunal mentioned these are all available on Sikh Book Club, which of course we are not associated with. And they're available on archive.com, available on Punjab Digital Library. So they are freely available. But just the awareness of these scholars who existed is something that's lacking in our wider community. And we hope that one of our goals is to make people more aware of these great scholars who've done tremendous work for us. Hanji.
Hanji, thank you. We actually have some uploads on our website, sickhistorybookclub.com. And what we can do is, while Manshan and Sial are talking, I'll put some links up at the top of the Clubhouse page. But we'll get started. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to read a narrative of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib's life, which I adapted from the Talib and Fauja Singh book. Some people might have heard slightly different stories of the one that we're going to discuss, or kind of the Sakya. And that's fine. There are some small differences here and there in different sources. If there's any kind of big mistakes we make, please forgive us and let us know maybe towards the end when we have a little open discussion. So I will start. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was born April 1st, 1621 AD. So I'll do kind of Gregorian calendar dates just to make it easy for everybody. He was born at Guru Ke Mahal in Amritsar with the name Tyagma. He was the youngest son of Guru Har Gobind Sahib and Mata Nanki. His older brothers were Baba Gurditta, Baba Surajmal, Baba Ani Rai, and Baba Atal Rai. He had one sister, Bibi Viroji, who was second born after Baba Gurditta. He was actually born during a time of relative peace with the Mughal state. In fact, prior to 1621, Guru Har Gobind Sahib and Jahangir had a decent relationship, but there was a conflict with a local Jamindar named Bhagwan, who was opposing the development of Har Gobindpur. So because of this, he got the Faujdar of Jalandhar to come attack Guru Har Gobind Sahib, and there was a battle at Rohilla where the Guru came out victorious. As a young man, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji had a keen interest in military arts, weapons, and horses. In these areas, he was trained by none other than Baba Buddha himself. His education included languages, poetry, and things that a young prince would need to know. And these languages he learned were not limited to Punjabi, but actually Braj Bhasha, Farsi, Sanskrit, and other local dialects. And none other than Bhai Gurdas Ji was his tutor in these aspects. So Guru Har Gobind Sahib, of course, traveled extensively during the young Shahzada Tegh Bahadur's life, and he was able to actually visit important Sikh centers and see the Sangat. So he was going to places like Kartarpur, Tarntaran, Kadur Sahib, Goindwal Sahib, and all other important Gurdwara that had growing and burgeoning Sangats. He was also exposed to some hardship in young life. He saw the deaths of two of his older brothers, Baba Atal Rai, and some sources say Baba Ani Rai also passed away when Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was also very young. This apparently made him more introspective and quiet, but it didn't make him a recluse in any sense. He was still participating in his duties as a son, as a brother, and as a member of the Sikh Sangat. He was betrothed at a young age to Gujari, daughter of Lal Chand from Lucknow, who had settled in Kartarpur. During these early teenage years, he continued to grow as a warrior and scholar, and often spent time with his father, Guru Har Gobind Sahib, on his travels and military exercises. The relationship with the Mughal state continued to change at this time. In 1627, Jahangir died and Shah Jahan, his son, took over. He was less tolerant and more aggressive towards the Guru, but he held back from doing anything rash because he had courtiers who told him it was a bad idea. Then in 1633, Mia Mir, who was very close to the Sikh Gurus, and Wazir Khan, a Mughal nobleman who was a devotee of the House of Nanak, both passed away. So these voices that were stopping any major conflict were now gone. And there were now other voices in the Mughal court that led to a series of rising tensions that led to the Battle of Amritsar in 1634. This Mughal host greatly outnumbered the Guru's troops, but he came out victorious nonetheless. Guru Har Gobind Sahib then went to Malwa to visit his Sangat, regroup, and gain more troops. He was pursued by the Mughals, and another battle took place in Miraj in December 1634, with again the Sikhs coming out victorious. Another famous battle was in April 1635, the Battle of Kartarpur, where Painda Khan, the former devotee of the Guru who betrayed him, was slain. There's ample evidence that Guru Tegh Bahadur participated at this battle. He was only aged 14, and due to his bravery, Guru Har Gobind Sahib changed his name from Tyagmal to Tegh Bahadur. After this battle, Guru Har Gobind Sahib took his men and family with him towards the Shivalik Hills to Kirtpur, which had been given to him by Raja Kalyan Chand of Kelur in 1621. Interestingly, Baba Shri Chand himself, the older son of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, laid down the foundation stone of Kirtpur at the request of Guru Sahib and Baba Gurditta. I think this would be a good time to pause, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the life and impact of Guru Har Gobind Sahib, not only on Sikhi, but his son as well. So, Mishran or Sial, if you'd like to take the lead.
Manshan, can I just make a couple of points and then you can come in regarding Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji and his influence on Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. So I think, Hanji. So the first thing we have to understand is the historical context. So what we have since the beginning of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time to the time of Guru Har Gobind Sahib is we see the evolution of two parallel states. We see the Mughal state which began with Babur, and we see the Sikh state, which was a different vision of the state, which began with Guru Nanak Dev Ji establishing his Sangat, right? So both these states have gone through a lot of evolution by the time of had gone through a lot of evolution by the time of Guru Hargobind Sahib. And as they were evolving, they also came into clash with each other, right? Because they presented two alternate visions of this civilization, this sabhyata, to the world. And the Mughal vision was one of domination, of religious persecution, and also of developing what we might call an apartheid state. Now, this was not initially evident during, say, Babur's reign, or it wasn't evident during Akbar's reign. Akbar had very cordial relationships with the Sikh Sangat. But it began to surface during Jahangir's reign. And during Jahangir's reign, there were two parties, in a sense, in the Mughal court. There was one liberal party, which were people who were from Akbar's time, and there was one more fundamentalist party, which were people who were influenced by this Sufi saint called Sirhindi. And Sirhindi, in fact, had instigated Jahangir. He was continuously instigating Jahangir to reverse the liberal policies of Akbar, to become more and more Islamic and to build an Islamic state and convert all of Hind into an Islamic region, right? And it was because of this instigation that this religious party, this fanatic party, they pushed Jahangir to take action against Guru Angad Dev Ji, because the vision that the Sikh Samaj, the Sikh Sangat had at that point of time, was completely opposed to this vision of the apartheid state of the Mughal regime. And this has to be absolutely clear. The clash existed right at the time of foundation of Babur's state, and right at the time in his diary and journal. So when so we have testimony of Jahangir, who writes about the martyrdom of Guru Angad Dev Ji and the reasons why he was martyred. Jahangir wrote that in his autobiography, but in his letters, Sirhindi also wrote that the martyrdom of Guru Angad Dev Ji was a great victory for Islam. It was a great victory, and the victory should be celebrated. So we see the breakdown of relations happening till then, happening then, and reaching a crisis point then. Then, of course, we reach Guru Hargobind Sahab's and time, and then he gives a new direction to this to the Sikh struggle against the Mughal regime, and that is something that Manshan is going to discuss in detail, and also the influence of uh, Guru Sahib's teaching and legacy on Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. So I think it's just important to understand this legacy. A lot of people tend to think that the clash happened at a certain point of time because of certain decisions taken by Aurangzeb or taken by anyone else. But no, the clash happened because these two visions of society, or these two visions of civilization, were fundamentally opposed to one another right from the beginning. There was the Sikh vision of civilization and the Mughal vision of civilization, which were incompatible, and a battle between these two visions had to happen, and one had to be victorious over the other. Right. So, Manshan, want to take it from here?
Yeah, for sure. These two societies were essentially on a collision course, from the very beginning, probably from the time, definitely from the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And just in terms of physical confrontations, those kind of manifested at the time of Guru Hargobind Bacha. Because, as we know, Guru Arjan Dev Ji was made Shaheed by, Jahangir at that time. So essentially after what happened is, as many of us have heard, Guru Hargobind Bacha kind of refused the kind of traditional investitures of the Gurgadi that had been passed down. Like Guru Nanak Dev Ji's garb that he would wear during the Udasis, and certain other stuff as well, like the mala, etc. Our historical sources say that Guru Hargobind Pacha refused these and instead told, I believe it was Baba Buddha Ji, to bring out two swords, right? One for Miri and one for Bidi. And he had the Akal Takat built as well. And these were all signs of simply confirming what, the Sikh Gurgadi already meant, right? It was, it was a sign of sovereignty, right? And building legitimacy for that Badshahi was, simply what Guru Hargobind Badshaw was doing when he's, telling his Sikhs, hey, come armed now. Now is the time to, let go of gold, and it's time to, start using iron instead. And so that's exactly what Guru Hargobind Bashaw's influence on Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji was, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji was his son and fought alongside his father at the battle with the Rohillas that we, just heard about. And so obviously after, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji kind of fades from the scene, and we'll talk about that a little later. But still, that that very real confrontation is exposed to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji before he's even Guru Sahib, when he's the Sahibzada of Guru Hargobind Badshaw, and his name is Dyagmal. We see that very clearly. And his father's philosophy was that we should still be detached from the world. Inside, right? And that's the big thing about Gurmat and Sikhi. Like, we don't, lose everything and, go to the mountains and just, lose track of society. But we are detached internally, but we still try to affect society on the outside.
Beautifully said, Mashan, and thank you, Sal, for the context. So we're now at 1634, and from 1634 to 1644, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji lived in Kirtpur and would occasionally go for missionary tours. An important event in his life during this time was in 1638 when Baba Gurditta died. This was the second time the son of Guru Hargobind Sahib had earned the ire and displeasure of him for using quote-unquote occult powers. Previously, Baba Atal Rai had revived a dead friend, and Baba Gurditta had done the same with a dead cow. They were both ashamed of their actions after being reprimanded by Guru Hargobind Sahib, and they both gave up their life to pay their debt. These events had a huge impact on Guru Tegh Bahadur in regards to his attitudes regarding miracles, violation of nature, and the use of spiritual power. It was commonly known that Baba Gurditta was likely the next guru, so there was a question on who would be most worthy now. Guru Hargobind Sahib decided it would be Baba Gurditta's younger son, Baba Har Rai. After this was revealed, it's reported that Mata Nanaki asked Guru Hargobind Sahib, "Why not Baba Tegh Bahadur?" And he answered her that he was not ready, but would sit on the throne of Guru Nanak as well. In 1644, Guru Hargobind Sahib left his body, and after the funerary rites, Guru Tegh Bahadur, Mata Gujri, and Mata Nanaki all shifted to Bagala, where Mata Nanaki's parents lived. Manchan, did you want to talk a little bit about the Bani of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji at this time, and maybe a little bit about, we could talk about the role of Hukam and the idea of occult magic and violating natural.
Yeah, for sure. I think Sial can maybe, talk more about the idea of Hukum and its kind of role in Gurmat. But I think I'll just go into a little bit about the Bani of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji when he talks about, certain practices and their futility. So I think we should also just clarify for everyone. So Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji wrote Shabads, and he wrote, the Sulok Mehla Nova, which was written at Chandani Chowk when he was imprisoned by Aurangzeb. But what I'm about to read right now was written before that, but during the time of his, while he was Guru. So let me just find it. So this is in the Rag Bilaval, uh, in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So Bilaval Mahalla Nova, Har ke naam bina dukh pavai. So without the name of the Lord, you will find only pain. Bhagat bina sehsa neh chukai, gur eh ped patavai rahau. So without devotional worship, doubt is not dispelled. The Guru has revealed this secret. And Rahau really reflects on this. So that's kind of a theme of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Bani, is focusing on bhakti. And then he's going to tell us, what kind of to not focus on, right? Kaha payo tirat birat kiye ram saran nahi aave. Of what use are these tirats, these sacred shrines of pilgrimage, if one does not enter the, Ram sanctuary of the Lord? Jog jag ne palateh mano, jo prab jas bisrave. Know that yoga and sacrificial feasts are fruitless if one forgets the praises of God. And in the readings, they talk about how a lot of practices of yoga would say that you can only do this properly in a very reclusive place away from society, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji is saying not to do that. Man moho dono ko parhar gobind ke gun gave. One who lays aside both pride and attachment sings the glorious praises of the Lord of the universe. Kaho Nanak e bid ko prani jivan mukt kahave. Says Nanak, the mortal who does this is said to be Jivan Mukta, liberated while yet alive. And this is another theme of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Bani, is talking about this concept of being Jivan Mukt, right? And trying to get human beings to the point where they can, evolve beyond their base kind of instincts, animalistic instincts, and get to the point of a more godlike existence. And just to kind of drive the point home that Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji was against miracles and magic or occult powers, we see the influence in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani as well, when he talks about Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Shahidi. And after describing it, he says, Natak Chetak Kiye Kukaja, Prablogan Keh Avat Laja, right? The saints of the Lord abhor the performance of miracles and malpractices. Natak Chetak, Prablogan, they abhor these things. So that was just a little bit about that. And Sial, you can talk about the role of hukam and its importance in Gurmat.
Thank you for that, Manshan. I think I have a few things to say, but I will try to connect them towards the end with Guru Sahib Shahidi. So I think for now, I think Kunal, we can proceed with the talk. Yeah.
Hanji, okay. So, Baba Tegh Bahadur, as he's known now, has moved through Bakala, and he spent much of his time in meditation there, starting early in the morning and deep into the night. It's important to note he did not become a recluse by any means. He continued to participate in the hunt and take interest in the affairs of Kirtpur, often communicating with his brother-in-law Kirpal Chand, who was in the service of Guru Har Rai Sahib. After spending about 12 years in Bakala without going out much, he decided to travel. First, he went to Kurukshetra, then to Haridwar, then Prayag, which is now again known as Prayag, previously Allahabad, then to Kashi, then Sasaram, Bodh Gaya, and finally he ended up in Patna. While in Patna, he learned the news that Guru Har Rai had passed on 6 October 1661. When Guru Tegh Bahadur learned of this, he left Mata Gujri and Kirpal Chand in Patna and decided to head back towards Kirtpur to pay his respects. He arrived in Prayag in 3rd January 1663, and upon approaching Delhi, he learned that Guru Harkrishan had arrived in Delhi, so he decided to go there instead. He arrived March 21st, 1664. He met Baba Ram Rai, the older son of Guru Har Rai, who had earned his father's ire for altering Bani to appease the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. Baba Ram Rai explained to Guru Tegh Bahadur the circumstances of Guru Harkrishan's arrival in Delhi. So Guru Tegh Bahadur then visited Mirza Raja Jai Singh's bungalow, which we now know as Gurdwara Bungalow Sahib, and met with Guru Harkrishan and Mata Sulakhani. And he personally conveyed to them his deep sense of sorrow and sympathy in their bereavement. Guru Tegh Bahadur left about a day after and returned towards Bakala. About a week after his departure, on 30th March 1664, Guru Harkrishan left his body after a short illness with smallpox, which was an epidemic raging in the city. Guru Harkrishan, before leaving his body, asked Divan Dargamal to come with Panch Paise and a Nariyal, and raised his right arm 3 times and uttered the words Baba Bakala, meaning he was giving the Gur Gaddi to Baba Tegh Bahadur. There are other sources, such as the Bhat Vahis from Jind and Guru Kiya Sakhiyan, which state that he actually explicitly named Baba Tegh Bahadur and instructed Divan Dargamal to take the sacred smagri to Bakala to give to the new Guru. Manshana Sial, I think we touched upon some of the ideas that we were going to at this section. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we get to the next?
Yeah, I just want to make a small point. I think this has to be the time at which Guru Sahib took the Gaddi, right? We have to understand it from the perspective of the unfolding, in a sense, of hukum. Now, Manshan mentioned that hukum is something that that we see as Sikhs, not just as an impersonal force that exists as the sort of order on which all of existence is based, but something that was unfolding through the actions of Guru Sahibs on earth, right? So as Guru Sahibs were building the Sangat, as Guru Sahibs were building our inner strength, as they were transforming the role of the Guru in this Mughal society, each guru at each stage performed something and did something which was important for this unfolding of hukum as it happened. So that was the time earlier when Mataji mentioned why not Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, then Guru Hargobind Sahib said it is not his time, right? Because the time for him would come at the time that it did come, and the role that it would play in the unfolding of this hukum and what consequences it would have for the Sangat and for Indian history and for human history, that could have only happened at that point of time. So you see, a lot of people ask why they ask silly questions like why wasn't so and so made the guru, why wasn't so and so made the guru, why wasn't a guru this or why wasn't the guru that. The thing is, these are not small decisions that are just made at one point of time. This is the unfolding of hukum, and this is something that is happening on many levels. This is happening on the earth, this is happening on a spiritual scale, this is happening on a cosmic scale, and it's just happening. It's happening as it was supposed to be and when it was supposed to be. And I'll come to this again towards the end, but I think now we can sort of proceed with this understanding towards the final sort of breakdown of relations with the Mughal state. Yeah.
So when word got out of Guru Har Krishan Sahib's decision, multiple descendants of Guru Har Gobind flocked to Bakala and proclaimed themselves gurus. Some sources say there were as many as 22 different manjis, including, not least of all, Dirmal, the eldest son of Baba Gurditta, who had been passed over and had been trying to fashion himself as a true guru. Guru Tegh Bahadur was not bothered by this, and he went on with his daily life. A few months passed until August 1664, when a Sangat from Delhi arrived. It was headed by Diwan Dargamal and included Mata Sulakhani, the mother of Guru Har Krishan Sahib, Dwarka Das, who was grandson of Baba Mori, the younger son of Guru Amar Das, also Baba Gurditta Rundava, the son of Baba Buddha, Guru Tegh Bahadur's teacher. So now a formal installation ceremony was performed, and Diwan Dargamal informed the congregation regarding the guruship being passed to Guru Tegh Bahadur. Dargamal then presented the Panj Paise and Nariyal, and Baba Gurditta performed the Tikka ceremony, which his father had done for the previous gurus. The other pretender gurus continued to stake their claim, but Guru Tegh Bahadur was not worried, and he actually went to Kirtpur to see Bibi Roopkaur to offer condolences for the death of her father Guru Har Rai and brother Guru Har Krishan. It was during this visit that Guru Har Krishan Ji's ashes were submerged in the Satluj on 22nd August. On October 9th, 1664, a very important event happened. Makhan Shah Labana came to Bakala and offered a gift of money to all the different people pretending to be the guru. When he gave them one or two mors, they were excited and happy and blessed him. But he secretly knew that the true guru would ask for the full amount. The story was that Makhan Shah was actually out doing some trading out on the sea. There was a big storm, and he prayed and he said, Guru Nanak, if you save me today, I promise to give a gift of 100 or 200 gold mors. It's a different number in different stories. So he figured the true guru would know the right amount. So when he came to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, he gave him one, and Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji looked at him and he said, that's not the right amount that you promised. And that's when he knew that this was the right man. He climbed to the top of the house and yelled, Guru Ladore, I found the guru. This ended up convincing many more who were holding out on who the true guru was. All the other pretenders pretty much left Bakala, except for Tirmal. He didn't give up. And with his Masand, Shihan, and about 100 ruffians, they attacked Guru Tegh Bahadur and plundered his darbar. Shihan actually fired a bullet point blank at the Guru and actually just grazed his shoulder. Makhan Shah and his men learned of this attack, and they went back, attacked them, brought back all that they had been stolen and more. Guru Tegh Bahadur did not want anything that didn't belong in his darbar and asked those items to be returned and the prisoners to be pardoned and released. He actually forgave Tirmal. Tirmal was so embarrassed that he left Bakala and went back to Kartarpur. Soon after, Guru Tegh Bahadur decided to travel and see his Sikhs. He began first by going to Amritsar, arriving November 22nd, 1664. There's actually two versions of what happened when he arrived. The Patwahi Tumar Bijliyon Ki and Guru Ki Sakhiyan state that Harji and Mehraban and the local Sangat came to Guru Tegh Bahadur and made obeisance before him and personally took him inside the Harmandir Sahib. Another popular version is that Harji ordered the closing of all entrances up to the premises of the Harmandir Sahib, so the Guru fixed his camp behind the Kalbanga and waited for his doors to open. This place is called Gurdwara Thara Sahib now. When he saw that Harji would not open the door, he went to stay outside the city where Gurdwara Damdama is now located. This is a different one from the one we know that's popular. Here, a Sangat from Amritsar came and asked him to return, which he did. So I think this might be a good time to pause and maybe we can talk a bit about the different quote-unquote unorthodox guru lineages that were at the time. So we talked a bit about, in the story, Tirmal. Of course, he was a... blanking right now. He was Guru Har Rai's older brother who was bypassed for the Gurgaddi because he was not worthy. And from the beginning, he had essentially tried to stake his claim. He was very kind of close to the Mughal government and was trying to always cause problems and division within the Panth. Before him, there was another schism with Prithi Chand, the older brother of Guru Arjan Dev Ji. And his line had kind of taken control of Amritsar and Darbar Sahib. There was Harji, Mehraban, and other in his line that kind of held sway over there. We talked a bit about Ram Rai. Baba Ram Rai was Guru Har Rai's older son. He was sent to New Delhi to explain the kind of practices of the Sikhs. But what he ended up doing was he changed a line of Bani to appease the Mughal Badshah, and this made Guru Har Rai essentially disown him. So at this point, there was about 3 different lineages claiming to be Guru, and they were all actually closer to the Mughal government. We read a book a few months ago called The Sikh Militancy in the 17th Century by Hardeep Singh Sian. And if you want to learn more about how they were different, how they had similarities, and why the true Guru lineage, other than them being the true Guru lineage, was the most popular, I think that'd be a good thing to touch upon. Munshan or Sial, did you want to talk a bit else?
I'm actually keen to listen to Manshan's views on this, but I just have an observation that just we need to note how all these challengers to the Guru Gaddi, how they're always being supported by the Mughal state, right? And this happens from the beginning because the Mughal state sees कि जो गुरु ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਸਟੈਂਸ ਲਈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਪਾਇਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਸ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਤੇ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੈ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਔਰੰਗਜ਼ੇਬ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਟੋਬਾਇਓਗ੍ਰਾਫੀ 'ਚ, ਉਹ ਲਿਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਅਤੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਚਲਾਈ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਖਤਰਾ ਸੀ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਰਿੰਦੀ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਤੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਇਸਲਾਮ ਲਈ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਇਸਲਾਮਿਕ ਵਿਜ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਵਿਕਟਰੀ ਹੈ। ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਦੇ ਰਿਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਦੈਟ ਬਾਈ doing the Shahidi of Guru Sahib, they were winning a victory for the vision of the Mughal state. And again, they realized this from the beginning ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਥ੍ਰੈਟ ਬਣੇਗੀ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਲਟਰਨੇਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੈਲੰਜਰ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੱਚੇ ਲੀਨੀਏਜ ਤੋਂ ਸੀ ਸਾਰੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ। I think this is an interesting aspect of Sikh history, how we see this continuous interference by the Darbar in this lineage. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਮਨਸ਼ਾਨ। Like I said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because we discussed this before as well.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I think about like kind of these unorthodox lineages, right? I think I'm kind of reminded in a way of like ਅੱਜਕੱਲ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ like ਏਕਤਾ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ, right? And it's like ਹਾਂਜੀ ਏਕਤਾ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ, but to a limit, right? Like we can't accommodate everyone, right? ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ even because these lineages they continued, right? And even like, 18th Sadi da Sikha, if you look at like their Jakare, right? Even in some of their Jakare, they are warning against interacting with these unorthodox Guru lineages. They've been dispelled from the greater Sikh population, right? Because they do not share, one of the prime beliefs, which is in the Dasaguru Saiba lineage that we are supposed to believe in. In some Jakarta, you'll hear like, Miniye, Masandiye, Nari Kuri Marka, Sapao Taike, right? Like, we're going to take the root out of the Minas, the Masands, and, Minas are these people, right? That they were descendants of the Guru Sahib, but they took the Guru Gaddi, they tried to take the Guru Gaddi for themselves and, do their own thing with it. So I think it's an interesting practice of kind of society building and statecraft, like, trying to encompass everyone to a certain point, right? I think, nowadays we want to include everyone in Sikh society, right? But that's not a very realistic thing. And our Guru Sahib, our Mahan Sikhs, they have given us the example that at some point you do have to separate people out of this society that you're trying to build, a society based on truth and Satyai di Marg.
I think the way I see it, there's always been a clear distinction between religion, the religion of Sikhi, and the philosophy of Sikhi. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਹੈ ਫਿਲਾਸਫੀ ਹੈ that is open to all ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਸੁਣੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਓ ਬਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਹਾਰਡ ਐਂਡ ਫਾਸਟ ਰੂਲਸ ਨੇ ਦੇ ਹਾਰਡ ਐਂਡ ਫਾਸਟ ਇੱਕ ਸਟਰਕਚਰ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਐਂਡ that is for a reason ਜੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਰੂਲਸ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੱਚਾ ਕਰ ਦੋਗੇ ਕਿਸਮ ਤੋਂ that will threaten the cohesiveness of your sangat and that will threaten your mission in the world to some extent. So I think that is very important for us to understand that these hard and fast rules exist for a reason. Once you begin diluting them, then we threaten the core in a sense, and we threaten the structure at its core, and it becomes weak. Yeah. So I think we can come back to this again towards the end. Kunal, do you want to continue? Hanji.
Hanji. After Guru Sahib's visit in Amritsar, he turned to visit his Sangat in the rest of Majha and Malwa. First, he stopped again at Kadur Sahib, Gonwal Sahib, and Tarn. He crossed the Satluj and entered Malwa via where the modern town of Firozpur now stands. He traveled the Lakhi jungle, where he went to many villages that still hold memory of his visit. He returned to Kirtpur by May 1665, and upon arrival, he was informed that Raja Deepchand of Bilaspur had passed away. He was invited to the death ceremony by the widowed Queen Rani Chamba. Guru Tegh Bahadur and his family and prominent Sikh Sangat members all attended. At this time, Guru Tegh Bahadur told the Rani he was planning on buying land near Kirtpur. The Rani and ministers offered the site of Makhoa, but he refused and wanted to pay for it. Eventually, a compromise was made, and the Rani agreed to accept a token amount. So on 19th June 1665, Baba Gurditta Randawa laid the foundation stone of what was then called Chak Nanaki, after the mother of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib. At this point, the Guru decided to go east. There's no definitive evidence on why the Guru decided to go, but one story states that while going to Bangladesh and Malwa to retrieve some luggage he left prior, he was arrested and taken to Delhi by the orders of Emperor Aurangzeb. There, Raja Ram Singh of Amber, a devotee of the Guru, interceded with the emperor and obtained his release. Another possibility is that Mata Gujri, brother-in-law Kirpal Chand, were still in Patna, and he had only planned temporarily to return to Punjab to offer condolences after Guru Har Rai's passing. Whatever the reason, what we know is that in summer 1665, Guru Tegh Bahadur, along with devotees including Bhai Sati Das, Bhai Mati Das, Bhai Jeta, all accompanied him in his travels east. They stopped in Ropur, Saifabad, which is now known as Bahadurgarh in next to Patiala. They reached Dhamdhan in the Bangar area. They planned to spend some time there and celebrate Guru Nanak's Gurpurab, but about 4 days before the event, Alam Khan Rohilla appeared with orders from Delhi and arrested him and his companions. External source called the Assam Burunjis mentions that Orthodox Brahmins and ulemas were worried about the powerful impact Guru Tegh Bahadur's teachings were having on the people of their area, and they actually complained to Aurangzeb, who issued the orders that Guru Tegh Bahadur should be brought before him. Guru Tegh Bahadur actually ignored the order, and so Alam Khan was sent to apprehend him. This same Burunji accounts that around 30k Nanak Panthi Sipahis were with the Guru. In Delhi, he was brought before Aurangzeb, who questioned him. Again, we talked about how Raja Ram Singh, who was one of the sons of Mirza Raja Jai Singh, helped obtain his release. The Burunji states that the emperor wanted to execute the Guru, but there was convinced that the Guru was a great saint and should not be dealt with unjustly. So Guru Tegh Bahadur was released on 13th of December 1665 and allowed to go where he wanted. He decided to go east. According to the Badshah Burunji, Aurangzeb became so mad at Raja Ram Singh for releasing the Guru, as he felt he violated the terms of custody. And he was also even further infuriated a few months later, because under the watch of Raja Ram Singh, Shivaji and son Shambhaji had escaped from his captivity at the fort of Agra. He would punish Raja Ram Singh, or at least try to, and we'll see how that went in a few minutes. I'd just like to bring up an interesting point over here. We hear a lot about the devotees of the Gurus in and around Punjab, but I think it's important to understand the reach that the Gurus had pretty much in all of India. And we learned that by reading about Guru Sahib's travels to the east. He was the first Guru since Guru Nanak Dev Ji to travel this far, and he went all the way to Assam, Dhaka, East Bengal, places like that. Also, interestingly, the house of Amber, this Raja Ram Singh, Mirza, and Jai Singh, it's pretty apparent from the records that they were essentially Sikh. They were really close to the Guru. They pretty much put themselves and their house at personal peril for protection of the Guru. We'll read a little bit about how the females in the family would wait upon the Gurus when they were in Delhi. So I think it's just very interesting to see the reach, not only for the common man that we know, that of course the message would be popular, but also these very high-ranking nobles in society who were also drawn to the message of the Gurus. Manshan or Sial, did you guys want to add anything else?
Yeah, definitely. And we see in this example too, there's a book about that includes a chapter about Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's travels to Assam and the situation behind it. And the book basically says, Raja Ram Singh went to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji and really, first really pleaded with him to come with him after, this whole situation with Aurangzeb, because even the Raja's principal queen, his Rani, had told him, for this expedition, you need the help of the Sikh Guru Sahib. No one else can help you, because no one else had wanted to take this military expedition. Aurangzeb had asked all his, Muslim commanders, the other Rajputs, and he had actually threatened Raja Ram Singh with death if he would not take this expedition against the Assamese. And we see that when Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji goes to Assam as well, even there, their army also respects Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, because they know that he's sitting on the throne of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who had went to Assam, and other Guru Sahib, I believe, had went to Assam as well. And he's actually the one who's able to kind of mediate the dispute between the Mughal court, as represented by the Rajput Raja Ram Singh, and the Assam rebels, essentially. So we see that the Guru Sahiban were enjoying immense respect across India, and that's also kind of why well, we'll get into that later. But yeah, it's a great point that a lot of people were very much.
Thank you, Manshan. I just want to make a point about the importance of these traditional sources of history, like the Badshah Burunji that you mentioned. I think we also have a letter or an inscription from Assam, which talks about the role Guru Sahib played in this mediation. Then mediation of the dispute that Manshan just spoke about. And of course, Kunal mentioned the Bhat Wahis, and Bhats are essentially, now we have in Punjab, we have the Marasi community, right? So essentially, Bhats are also like them. They go from place to place, they have certain areas where they talk to families, they record lineages, they record things that happen, births, deaths, and things like that. So in the 50s and 60s, these scholars of Punjab University, they began to approach these Bhat houses, right? So they maintain these records on small slips of paper, which are called wahi, ਰਾਈਟ ਤੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਭੱਟ ਵਾਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਕਾਲਰਸ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਕਈ ਟਨ ਵਾਹੀਆਂ ਪਈਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਕਾਰਡਡ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਰਾਈਟ ਫਰਮ ਦ 17th century and those were unexplored before these scholars began to do this. So these Bhat Wahis, they tell us about Guru Sahib's travels, and they can be further authenticated with Panda Wahis. Now Panda Wahis are Wahis which are maintained by Pandits at sacred places like Allahabad and Hardwar. So they have their own record. So these Bhat Vahis actually are correlated with Panda Vahis of Pandits, which give us further information about the route Guru Sahib took during his travels. And then they are still further authenticated by records like the Badshah Burunji and the inscription that we have regarding Guru Sahib's mediation. So and of course, then we have sources from Sikh history as well, which we will talk about later. But you might see a lot of historians who are trained in more Anglophonic traditions of history who ignore these traditional sources of knowledge. But these traditional sources of knowledge are very, very important for us, and especially now when we see a lot of propaganda and challenges to authentic Sikh history. So, Hanji, Kunal, agge vadiye.
Hanji. So first, after leaving Delhi, he went to Mathura, then Vrindavan, Agra, Kanpur, Fatehpur, Prayag, and then Kashi. So in Kashi, there's apparently a dark brown dress of Rajput style at their Gurdwara, believed to be Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's, and preserved over there still for people to see. And I think you can actually go online and see a picture of it. He eventually went to Bodh Gaya, and then finally after Bodh Gaya to Patna. This was in May 1666. The Guru then traveled further into Mongyur, Bhagalpur, Kolgang, Sahibganj, and Katananagar. Interestingly, many small villages in this area of Bihar are still predominantly Sikh, and though they dress in Bihari and their language is Maithili, they still follow the traditions of their ancestors who were exposed and had the darshan of Guru Sahib. He went to the great Sufi center of Malda and actually had discussion with the peers over there and impressed all of them. He finally arrived in Dhaka in 1667, which was at the time the most important city in eastern India. Guru Nanak had actually visited during his udasis, and the Sikh Sangat had been an important part of the town for many years. One important Sikh of the Guru was Bhai Bulaki, who was a Sangat leader, and his mother, who was a quiet elderly lady, had been yearning for the darshan of the Guru for many years. She actually asked him to sit for a painting, which was done by a royal court artist and is still existent today. And it's said to be the only contemporary portrait of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. A darbar was actually held in large numbers, and Sangat from across Bengal, including Sailet, Sandeep, and Chittagong, came in large numbers. The Mughal governor of Bengal actually gave a jagir to the Gurdwara in goodwill towards the Singh Sangat and for the honor of Guru Tegh Bahadur. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji stayed in Dhaka for about a year, and on his return to Patna, he met Raja Ram Singh of Amber, who was on his way with the Mughal army to Assam to fight the Ahom ruler. So, as we mentioned, it said Aurangzeb sent them there on a suicide mission as punishment for Raja Ram Singh letting Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji go and letting Shivaji escape. So Raja Ram Singh was actually very afraid of black magic by his enemies. Rumors that they had sorceresses in these eastern armies got to them, and not many of his companions really wanted to fight. He begged Guru Tegh Bahadur to come with him to protect him, and the Guru would not turn away his devotee. So they left for Dhaka en route to Assam in late 1668. They entered Assam likely in early 1669. Guru Tegh Bahadur crossed the Brahmaputra and stayed in a place called Dubri, whereas the Raja and his group moved about 10 to 12 miles ahead. They fought the Ahoms and won a few battles and laid siege to the town of Guwahati. The Ahoms, I don't know how to pronounce that, resorted to guerrilla warfare. Tradition states that their ruler, Chakradwaj Singh, also known as Raja Surgdev in Guru Ki Sakya, and his generals involved the goddess Kamakhya to destroy the enemy. When none of the spells worked, they attributed it to the presence of Guru Tegh Bahadur in the Raja's camp. They then brought a sorceress named Neta Thoban, which didn't make any difference. So during this time, as Manshan mentioned, the Guru attracted large crowds of Assamese. He marched a few miles ahead to get close to the Raja Ram Singh's camp. Now he started being visited by the enemy side's commanders, and he actually played the role of a peacemaker, bringing about an understanding, albeit temporary, to follow pre-existing borders. The war, though, would continue all throughout the rainy season. Around this time, writers state that Aurangzeb's new religious policy of persecution in 1669 motivated Guru Tegh Bahadur to return home. So he decided to leave the Raja and took a shorter route in Bihar to return. He actually bypassed Patna because he did not want to delay. He sent Bhai Mati Das to fetch his wife and brother-in-law Kirpal Chand and take them to Lucknow. Guru Tegh Bahadur reached Delhi and met with the mother of Raja Ram Singh, Rani Pushpa Devi, and Ram Singh's wife, who waited upon the Guru and paid homage to him. The Guru Sahib left Lucknow, and he was accompanied by many, including Nawab Saif Khan of the aforementioned Saifabad, who had been living a hermit's life and had been a great devotee of the Guru for many years. So, Guru Tegh Bahadur's family, including the young Prince Gobind Das, arrived 13 September 1670. Guru Tegh Bahadur then went to Mulla to see Bibi Viro and asked the family to stay in Lucknow for now. He then finally went to Bakala to see Mata Nanaki and then called for his family to join him there. It's unknown how long Guru Tegh Bahadur stayed in Bakala, but from the Shahid Bilas of Seva Singh, we know that by March 29, 1672, Guru Tegh Bahadur was at Chek Nanaki, where he was met by a young Bhai Mani Singh. When returning to Punjab in late 1670, the atmosphere was very different from when he left it. Economically, the state's Mansabdars and Jagirdars were exploiting the countryside. Also, the jizya and pilgrim taxes that were removed by Emperor Akbar and his successors, who were, though each less tolerant than him, they didn't resume it, but Aurangzeb, the new Badshah, decided to wholesale reinstitute them. He actually stopped Nowruz, which was a solar New Year celebration. He stopped other Turkic Mughal traditions that he felt were not in line with his interpretation of Islam. Royal astronomers and astrologers were considered heretics and were dismissed. Drinking was prohibited. The permissible length of a beard was fixed at 4 fingers. Gold clothing for garments was prohibited. Clay figures meant for children of birds, animals, and humans were banned. Shias were banned from celebrating Muharram or any other ritual mourning of their shaheeds. Any blasphemy was punishable by death. Specific persecutions of non-Muslims was in places like public service, repair of temples, and conversions and taxation. So during the other Mughals times, there was a healthy mix of people from different communities, including non-Muslim communities serving as Jagirdars and Mansabdars. But by the time that Aurangzeb took over, it was cut in about 50% of what it was during Shah Jahan's reign. Aurangzeb essentially started allowing destruction of temples and looting. For example, in 1666, the stone railing of Keshavrat Temple in Mathura was removed by imperial orders. In 1669, a general order was given for destruction of all schools of and temples of Hindus, quote unquote, which included a lot of Sikh dharamsalas. In August 1669, the Kashi Vishwanath temple was destroyed and a mosque was built upon the site. The same fate happened to the Keshav Rai temple, and many temples of Sikhs were destroyed and Masands were expelled from the cities. The pilgrimage tax was resumed in 1665. It was set at 2.5% for Muslims and 5% for Hindus. In 1679, the jizya was reinstated and very kind of aggressively implemented. There's some more information in the books we read about the economic system and collapse that can be read, but I think that's a little bit too detailed for our discussion. I'd like to take a pause over here, and I know we talked a bit about Mughal-Sikh relations, but just wanted to see if you guys had anything else you wanted to add.
Hanji, I think the book also has some passages about certain Dharamsals, Sikh Dharamsals being attacked, and the Sangat actually organizing and resisting and fighting back. So I think people who are interested in those those narratives from history, you can look at the book, and it has so much more. So, and again, this is something that a lot of people don't know, that Sikh Dharamsals were also attacked by Aurangzeb, and the Sangat actually resisted. So, Manshan, you want to make a point about Sikh Mughal relations? I think we touched on that earlier, and we can come back to that towards the end. But we see this constant deterioration that I mentioned during the beginning of the talk, and things have come to a head now. So, Manshan, do you have anything to add? नहीं तो फिर कुणाल आगे बात है. हाँ जी.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just one point is that it kind of sets the background for a lot of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Bani, especially the Saloks, right? You know, we're talking about the internal crisis of humans, but there's also this external crisis that's very real and it's very pressing.
Definitely. So this is the last section I'll read, and then we'll kind of continue our discussion. So now it's in the middle of 1673. Guru Tegh Bahadur actually decides to take his second official tour of Malwa and the Bangladesh. He first went to Saifabad to see his devotee Saif Khan and stayed there for about 4 months. After, he went to the village of Mulluwal and helped fix their issue with dirty well water. He went to a place called Tegh, which was the area of the Jawanda Jamindars. He was apparently ignored by the Chaudhry named Loka and went to a neighboring town where he was followed by the people of Tegh, who apologized for their Chaudhry's behavior. A little while later, Isa Khan, a Muslim chief, attacked Tegh and it was sacked. It was said by the people this was due to their chief's actions of disrespect towards the Guru. After, he went to many other villages and gained more followers. He actually went to a place called Biki, where he met a gentleman named Desraj, who was a follower of Sultan Saki Sarwar. The followers were known as Sultanis. Guru Tegh Bahadur actually gave him 5 arrows and said as long as he cherished them, he would be victorious in all his undertaking in battles. Deshu was excited and went home, but he was actually taunted by the elder Sultanis and was not able to withstand their taunts, and he actually ended up destroying the arrows. Even after his other family members and local people tried to intervene to get Guru Tegh Bahadur to forgive him, which he actually did, these people continued to follow their peer instead of the Guru. Guru Tegh Bahadur eventually reached Talwandi Sabo, now known as Damdama Sab, and he described this place as a secret Kashi and that his successor would stay here in the future and uncover it. He actually inaugurated the digging of a tank here, and everyone joined in, and it's now called Gurusar. He then traveled more into what's now modern-day Haryana. Guru Tegh Bahadur returned to Chakananaki a few months later in 25th May 1665. A short while after, there was a deputation of Kashmiri Pandits that arrived with tears in their eyes. They recounted how in their land of Kashmir, the local Subedar Iftikhar Khan had unleashed an all-out campaign to convert the Kashmiri Brahmins by force and killed anyone who refused. The leader of the deputation was one Kirpa Ram Dutt from Matan, who had previously spent much time in the Darbar of the Guru and understood that only he would be able to help them. Tradition holds that while this meeting was going on, the young Shabzada Govindas suddenly entered the Darbar and was taken aback at the complete silence. When he approached his father, and Guru Tegh Bahadur explained the situation to him and told him only a supreme sacrifice by a great man could ward off tragedy, The young Gobind Das replied, "Was there anybody more worthy of sacrifice than himself?" Guru Tegh Bahadur was pleased from this response from his son and decided the time was right to offer himself for the deed. He told the Brahmins to relate to the Mughals that they would have no objection of converting as long as he embraced Islam first. Before leaving Chaknanki 2 months later, he performed the formal installation ceremony for Gobind Das with a tilak on his forehead, Panch Paise, and the Nariyal. He left around the 11th of July 1675 with Bhai Mati Das, Bhai Sati Das, and Bhai Dayal Das. All of them were arrested a day after their departure in a village called Malikpur Rangara by Mirza Nur Muhammad Khan. They were then taken to Ropar, then Sirhind under military guard, and finally to Delhi, where they were detained for 8 days in Chandni Chowk. According to the Patwahi Purbi Dakhni, the period of detention was a little bit more than 4 months, where they were tortured essentially every day. The Guru was asked repeatedly to convert to Islam, and he refused. They then asked him to perform a miracle, but again he remained unshaken in his resolve. For Sikhs, it was against nature to use occult powers, and he had seen himself the displeasure, the actions of Baba Atal Rai and Baba Gurditta that had caused Guru Har Gobind Sahib. And finally, on November 11, 1675, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib and his companions were made shaheed. Bhai Mati Das was sawn alive. Bhai Sati Das was burned to death while wrapped in cotton. Bhai Dayala was boiled to death. Guru Tegh Bahadur was forced to sit and watch all of these brutal executions. He then offered himself to the executioner, who brought down the sword on the Guru's neck. After the execution, the bodies of the Guru and the Shaheeds were left on public display to scare people. At night, Bhai Nannu retrieved the head and gave it to Bhai Jeta, who traveled to Kirtpur to the young Guru Gobind Das and presented it to him. The head was then taken from Chaknanaki, where it was cremated, and this site is now called Gurdwara Shishganj, not to be confused with the one in Delhi. On the night of November 12th, there was a huge sandstorm in Delhi. This gave an opportunity for Bhai Lakhi Shah, who was helped by his sons and other Sikhs, in retrieving the Guru's body. They took the body to his home in the town of Rakabganj and set it on fire by putting it in his house. That way there'd be no evidence. They retrieved the ashes, and that spot is now where Gurdwara Rakabganj lies. So we can take a pause right over here and talk a bit more about the importance of Guru Tegh Bahadur's Shahidi and maybe some other context around this story. So, Mushan or Sial, I'll let you take the lead.
So I can talk a little bit about Salok Mahalla Nova. So that is, it's in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. It's towards the very end, right before the last few Barnis that act as the seal. And if you've ever been to like a Bog or something like that, it gets recited there. And this is the Bani that Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji wrote while he was imprisoned in Chandni Chowk, awaiting this execution that he knew was coming. If you look at the Bani, though, the Bani is very much, a lot of the papers that we've read said one of the central themes is Vairag, right? Which means without attachment, essentially. And it doesn't mean, being a recluse and not contributing to society, but it means understanding that everything we have is going to eventually, is ultimately false, right? And the only true thing that's coming is one of the only, the only true thing that we know is that one day we're going to have to leave this world. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji has accepted this in the Bani. And they're talking about what a true person is, how someone has really gotten onto the path of acceptance and stuff. But one thing is that, when we talk about the authorship of the 53rd and the 54th Saloks, part of the Sikh tradition talks about how, so Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji actually sent some of these saloks through a messenger to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And part of the tradition that I think is in certain Itihasa Granths, and I think Bhai Veer Singh Ji says this as well, is that the Dohra, which says Bal Chutkyo Bandan Pare Kachu Na Hot Upay, Kaho Nanak ab otahar gaj jo ho sahai, right? Which means my strength is exhausted and I am in bondage. I cannot do anything at all. Says Nanak, now the Lord is my support. He will help me as he did the elephants, right? This was actually told to the young Guru Gobind Singh Ji, then Gobind Rai, and Gobind Rai's response was the next dora, which is Bal hoa, bandhan chute, sabk chahot upay. No, wait, sorry. बल हाँ जी बल हुआ बंधन छुटे सब कुछ होत उपाय नानक सब कुछ तुम्हारे हाथ में तुम ही होत सहाय. My strength has been restored and my bonds have now been broken. Now I can do everything. Nanak, everything is in your hands. Lord, you are my helper and support. Part of the Sikh tradition says that this was the response of the young Gobind Rai telling his father that he, to ensure that he can face the Shahidi, and it was also Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's test to the young Gobind Rai to ensure that he was ready for the Gurgadi. But yeah, Sial, if you
Thank you for that, Munshan. Uh, I think I'll just conclude with a passage from the book by G.S. Talib on the importance of Guru Sahib's Shahidi, and then let's open for discussion and let's see if anyone has anything to add. Right. So I'll just read this passage. It's on the importance of Guru Tegh Bahadur's Shahidi by G.S. Talib. So he writes, whether we consider the long-standing Sikh ideology preached and practiced since the time of Guru Nanak, or we take into account the circumstances that led to the martyrdom of the ninth Guru, or the evidence of the Bachittar Natak, it becomes clear that Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib performed the mighty deed under the inspiration of the highest of human ideals and values. Some of these may be mentioned as compassion, karuna, for suffering humanity, for oppressed and exploited people, as number two, protection of dharma or taram, the moral order, recognized in Sikh tradition as the basis of human society. Number three, resistance to tyranny resulting from the breach of the norms of Dharam. Number four, respect and tolerance for modes of living and thinking other than one's own, what is today termed as the ideal of a plural society. So this last passage I've spoken about earlier about the Sikh vision of society and how that vision was very different from the Mughal vision of society. So the Mughals, of course, were an empire, and empires like to categorize people into neat categories and sort of bound them in their holes. Like we saw the British Empire, they like to create caste, like to create Brahmanical law and this and that because that makes society easily controllable. They were following the Mughals in that. The Mughals wanted Muslims to be Orthodox Muslims, Hindus to stay in their place under the Brahmanical order. But the Sikh Sangat was completely revolutionary in the middle. Now, Dara Shikoh, who had good relations with Guru's Darbar, Dara Shikoh had written a book called The Mingling of the Two Oceans, right, which was about the intermixing of various traditions that were in Indian society. And Dara Shikoh was actually friends with people who were associated with Guru's Darbar and even had personal relations with them. And in Guru Sahib's Darbar, that mingling was actually happening. In his Sangat, it was actually happening. That is what Jahangir wrote when he martyred Guru Sahib. That Hindus are coming to him, Muslims are coming to him, Jogis, people from other traditions are coming to him. And while we are trying to build this imperial society where we want to categorize everyone into neat slots, ਇਹ ਥੱਲੇ ਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਹੀ ਹੋਈ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਨਵਾਂ ਸਮਾਜ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਈ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ and that happened from that happened in the long run. Uh, uh, I mean that was the goal of society in the long run. But another important uh, point that Talib raises is how a lot of things that we call human rights now, which we seem to think come from the West, were actually envisioned first of all by our gurus, right? A lot of these ideas of plural society, freedom of conscience, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਹੁਣ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਲਓ, terms ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਲਓ, but ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ essence ਹੈ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਿਖਾਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਜ ਬਣਾਓਗੇ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਗੁੱਡ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਬਣੇਗਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਲੋਕ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਮੁਹੱਬਤ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਮਾਜ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ. And another point that I think Manshan can also speak about is this importance of Taram as the basis on which society should run, because this also connects with the Sikh view of how an ideal king or a monarch should behave in society. And this is something that Manshan and I were discussing earlier as well. So, Manshan, do you want to comment on that, the importance of Dharam and its relation to kingship, and how this works in the Sikh political theory? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the last book we read in the book club about Maharaja Rupadaman Singh, how he was kind of an ideal Sikh political ruler because he based everything on Gurmat, right? Everything he did was trying to, bring about these human rights that we see enshrined by the Sikh Guru Sahib. And we see the opposite of that in the Mughal Empire at that time. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Bani, and I think this was a really interesting perspective from the papers that we've read, was that he was preparing the common man for what he would have to do in order to ascend past the Mughal Empire and rule themselves, right? And we've seen in the papers that we've read before as well how people could not imagine a land without the Mughal Empire, right? Just like today, if you're in America, you probably can't imagine a place without this land without the American country, right? But I think Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji and all the Sikh Guru Sahiban knew that there would be a time that would have to come when the common person would have to throw off the shackles of oppression and slavery. And that's a big part of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Bani, is trying to prepare the common man to, one, even just resist conversion, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji is telling us, do not be attached to these gifts that they'll give you, because people were gifting money, land, etc., to Hindus and Sikhs alike in order to get them to convert to Islam. But Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji in his Bani is telling us, ignore these things, right? Stick to Dharam at the end of the day, stick to our Sikh creed at the end of the day. And also, in order to become Khalsa, right? And Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Shahidi is what very much was very much the driving force behind the need for the Khalsa, right? The need for, okay, at this point, they are massacring people. The common man will need to step up, right? We have his saloks where he talks about transcending certain opposites, right? Dukh and sukh, happiness and sadness, right? Vadi and meat, right? Transcending those opposites as well, enemies and friends. A lot of different things that we will have to get past in order to reach this almost godlike state of mind that will be needed by the Khalsa in order to throw off the shackles of oppression and then rule with a rule in the concept of Sikhi, right? Rule in the concept of Dharam that won't, corrupt the Sikhs and won't and will lead to a just society. Sial, do you want to add?
Nani, thank you for that. That was so beautifully said. Kunal, do you want to add something? What are your views on everything we read on the papers on Guru Sahib's importance? And then after that, let's just open to questions and discussion.
Hanji. One thing you guys were talking about, the role of the sovereign and the dharma of a sovereign. So I think one of the essays touches upon this, but if we look at the idea of the divine right of kings, in the West, Europe, the king is only answerable to God, right? And I think this was the idea that the Mughals and other kind of sovereigns of Central Asia also took. But the article argues that for the Sikh worldview, monarchy is not necessarily an illegitimate form of government, and kings do have kind of a uh, not exactly like a divine right, but they are put there as unfolding of hukam. But they are answerable, and they're answerable to their people. So the role of a king in Sikh society or a leader is for the betterment of the community, and when they fall short of that, that's when it's right to resist, whether it be through passive means or violent means. When the role of the sovereign isn't fulfilled in protecting their people, um, divine justice comes in. I think Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks about this in the Babarwani, how the Lodhis themselves were not holding up their end of the bargain and protecting the people of the Hind, and Babur came as divine retribution. Um, that line of retribution, kind of the scourge sent from the divine. It's kind of echoed, I think, in the Baba Banda Bahadur also mentions it when talking to the Mughals, saying, "I'm sent here as retribution or justice," and he acknowledges that justice will be dealt to him as well for all of his misdeeds. Kind of a cyclical idea of keeping things stable in a way. I don't know if you guys had a similar thought. Just reading all of that is kind of tied. I did a few different eras of Sikh history that we've been reading about.
Yeah, definitely. I think Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Shahidi, like I was saying before, kind of laid the foundation for the Khalsa, and it was just kind of something else that was just kind of enraging the common man, because we also see, right, how popular the Sikh Guru Sahiban were. I think nowadays we have this perception that, like, oh, it was only Punjab or whatever, but no, it was also in Assam, even Bihar, all these places. The Sikh Guru Sahiban had followers, and it was kind of this, like, maybe Sial can touch on it more, this kind of upsurge from the bottom of society that wanted change, right? Wanted change from this ruler, and internally there needed to be change first, right? All of this is all connected. Like, I very much subscribe to the view that excuse me, sorry. I very much subscribe to the view that Japji Sahib, you know, has most of the everything in Guru Granth Sahib Ji can be considered like expounding on the concepts in Japji Sahib, right? And some of the papers mentioned this as well. When we're talking about give sachiara hoye, give gure tutte pal, hukum rajai chalana nanak likhya nal, right? When we're talking about this internal, kind of destruction and this internal kind of problems of man and people in general, that needs to be fixed in order to get to the point where we can then have someone like Banda Singh Bahadur rising up and doing what he did. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Barney is showing that as well.
Well said, Mishan. Amandeep Paji, kuch gal karni hai? Naita, we can open it up for questions or concerns in the.
ਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਵੀਰਾ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੱਦਾ ਭੇਜ ਦੇਣਾ, ਫਿਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। ਜੀ ਜੈ ਆਨੰਦ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ। ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਪਲੀਜ਼
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ Anji, Jayanand, Anji, did you have any thoughts on what anyone has said so far?
pausing to think. The expansive nature of human rights and the Sikh outlook has been so new to me in my learning, and it was beautiful to hear. I that's not a particularly meaningful thought, more just of an observation of how it touched my heart. So thank you.
No worries. Yeah, Sial, we actually got a question from the audience. If you can kind of expand on the concept of hukum and how it's been relating to all this unfolding that we've seen, in
Yeah, can you just give me a minute, because I've written about this. Let me open the essay and I'll read some passages from there. Just give me a minute.
no worries. Yeah, Rupinder Viji. In the meantime, did you want to say anything?
Hanji, if you have a question in the meanwhile, please carry on the discussion. मैं जरा खोल के फिर कुछ passages read out करता हूँ. Hanji.
ਜੀ ਰੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਥੱਲੋਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਆਣਾ ਤੇ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ
Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh. Thank you so much, Amandeep Singh Ji, for hosting this event, Kunal Ji and Mancharan Ji. I would like to ask, like we were discussing about this readings of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji. So, in contemporary terms, how can we sort of, give the, this guidance to the current situation? How can we that relate and sort of, take it forward? Can you please throw some light on that?
I can try. I mean, when relating Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's, I would recommend everyone to just read Salok Mala Nova and, you know, kind of see how it can apply to yourself. But I think there's a lot about how we need to kind of get past being affected by everything, right? Being affected by happiness, sadness, and obviously that's a part of human life as well. And there's a point made as well about those types of people are very rare who can actually get to that point where Dukh and Sukh do not affect them, right? But trying to live to that ideal, I think, will be very helpful in just living life in general, and also recognizing that these things that we're super attached to, like our families, and this is a very hard realization. I'm nowhere near that point, but these things that we're attached to, like our career, family, friends, wealth, etc., that they're ultimately false, and that does not mean to not pursue these things. And excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold, but it doesn't mean to not pursue these things and not have love for your family, friends, etc., and not live life. But it does mean that I think it's something to help you when loss occurs, right? When Guru Gobind Singh Ji has this immense loss in his life, right, of his 4 sons, his mother, a lot of his Sikhs, right? How he reacts is something that I think we should see as like kind of an example of this detachment, right? When a lot of people say how he didn't, when he was told about the Shahidi of the Vade Sahibzade and the Chote Sahibzade, he said, Char Muwe to kya hua, Jeevat kai hazar, right? If 4 have gone on, then what does that matter if my thousands of Sikhs are still here, right? I think that's the type of attitude of Chardi Kala that we should have, and it's hard, but the Sikhs of the 18th century, they definitely had that, or they would not have gone from living in the jungles to ruling Punjab and knocking on the doors of Afghanistan. I don't know if Sial, if you have a perspective, or Kunal, if you have a perspective on that as well.
One other thing, and you kind of mentioned this, is detachment. And when people think about detachment, they think of it as kind of a person sitting in a jungle away from society. And of course, we know in Sikhi that's not the ideal life. That's not how a person can truly gain liberation. On the other hand, of course, we don't want to be engrossed in the world where we lose the true nature of what we're seeing and our reality. So one of these essays actually brings it up truly that, Guru Tegh Bahadur, though he was, a meditative person, a quiet, introspective person, he still participated in the world. He still worked. He still enjoyed time with family. He liked things. He liked hunting. He liked nice things, of course. But the important thing is, you can be exposed to all these. You can enjoy life's comforts, but you don't lose sight of what's true. And as long as you don't leave sight of what's true, these outside things can't really affect you deep down and hinder your connection with Waheguru. So I think that's kind of one of the main ideas I got from reading Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Bani. One recommendation I have, and he was in here a little bit earlier, Sarpreet Singh Paji, has a Gurbani, Gurmat Sangeet podcast, and I think he did an episode on Clubhouse of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Bani. written or sung by a different great kirtaniye. His website, also the Gurmat Sangeet Project, has a lot of great recordings. One of my favorite recordings is uh, by I think it's Taram Zakmi, and it's a Shalok Mahalla Nova. It's about 29 minutes, but it's probably my favorite rendition. Um, by since it's done in Rag Kirtan and with just very clear, lucid pronunciation of Bani. So I'll put that up on Twitter so you guys can check it later. But I think it's a very good thing to listen to and kind of meditate on. Sial, did you want to read parts of your essay regarding hukam?
Hanji. So I'm going to read some passages and then maybe we can discuss them after this. So I'm beginning now. So most of us would know that Guru Nanak Dev Ji was a contemporary of Babur. Few would know he was a witness to the destruction caused by Babur's invasions. In the deeply moving hymn known as the Babur Bani, Guru Nanak hearkens to God after witnessing the destruction, asking how he, Akal Purakh, the all-powerful, could allow the Mughal messenger of death to first destroy Khorasan, which is Afghanistan, and then Hindustan, about why a powerful man such as Babur could at whim destroy the weaker around him, and the master, that is God, do nothing to protect them, to protect the weak. The Babur Vani seems almost like an admonition to God, until you reach a passage where Guru Nanak exclaims, "You yourself unite, you yourself separate. I gaze upon your glorious greatness." This is to Akal Purakh. Now, what is the relevance of the Babur Vani to our discussion? The interpretation of this hymn guides us towards understanding and making sense of the darkest and most difficult periods in human history. In theological terms, the moving force of history in Sikhi is the will or the hukum of God. So, whatever happens in history is an unfolding of this divine hukum or divine will. Now, in scientific terms, you might interpret this as a serial multitude of causes and effects which are beyond human control or even beyond human understanding. An invasion, such as Babur's, is almost like a natural force. So, whom do you blame for it? So, Leo Tolstoy reached a similar conclusion about Napoleon's invasions across Europe. Napoleon was not some great soul who remade history. As the German philosopher Georg Wilhelm Hegel saw him, he was the or Georg, however you pronounce that. He was the consequence of a churn from below, a figurehead who was created by the collective energies of the people who lived in that age. So, this is a vision for understanding history that comes from our tradition of Gurbani, rather than that also resonates with our tradition of Gurbani. Rather than looking at the characters of people or individuals who were in the end inconsequential, what does an era of invasions actually mean in a deeper sense? Why does death and destruction happen? Because, in the words of the Babarwani, it is a separation which makes possible a new unity or a new beginning. Again, do not look at individuals, look at the forces from below. The greatest symbol of unity in that age of the Mughal era was Guru Nanak himself. In Baba Nanak, various traditions of India at the time were creating a churn in Indian society, and they reached an apogee in the Sikh Sangat, in the emergence of a new path, recognizable even to the simplest minds, but also sophisticated and radical uh, the more you explore it. So these were the two oceans of Indian thought that Dara Shikoh had also observed were uniting during the Mughal Empire. And in fact, it was not just two oceans, but hundreds of seas, hundreds of traditions that began to merge and create new philosophies, cultures, and identities, the epitome of which was, of course, the Sikh Sangat. The philosophy of Guru Nanak emerged as a vessel to cut across these churning waters of that age and offer a new path or a panth that offered a different way to reach the divine, to reach God across the waters of Maya. The churning of all philosophies continues, and especially today, and as we grapple with globalized modernity, and so and so on. I'm just going to skip some sections and move forward. Now, I attempted a discussion of a philosophy of history by referring to Guru Nanak's Babarwani. I wrote that, in my understanding, it seems that Babarwani is almost an admonition to God until Guru Nanak Dev Ji exclaims, "You yourself unite, you yourself separate. I gaze upon your glorious greatness," which is your glorious works. From this, we can derive an understanding of history, of why as in the classical theological questions, why do bad things happen to good people? Why does God act as an impartial observer? And what can we do about it? So now, in this section, I explore how this simple statement from Guru Nanak forms a bedrock on which later Sikh society, the Sangat, and even the idea of the Sikh polity or the Khalsa develops. Now, in the face of the unfolding of brutal history, what can a normal, powerless human being do? God, who is nirpau, nirvair, beyond human values, and one who does not take sides in the petty battles of humanity, in a sense, allows history to happen because he will not interfere in human affairs. That is what we think. At least that is what is initially implied when we talk about nirpau, nirvair God. But if we look closer, God or Kalpuruk has intervened, and he has done so through Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak is there on earth and he's observing everything that is happening. So, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji is not, excuse me. So the mere fact that Guru Nanak, one second, ठंड हो गई है थे. हाँ जी. The mere fact that Guru Nanak expresses this nature of God is a revelation which has two consequences. One, we must not expect someone to come and save us. Two, we must do so ourselves. Sorry, I'm just, yeah. The mere fact that Guru Nanak expresses the nature of God is a revelation which has two consequences. One, we must not expect someone to come and save us. Two, we must do so ourselves. The way or the passage through this churn of society will be shown to us by the Guru. From here, the basic elements of Sikh society begin to develop. In the face of historical forces, to protect ourselves against it, we must look within. For faith to understand our predicament, we must look outside at our neighbors who are all facing the same consequences. So, through faith and through association with neighbors, the Sangat or community begins to develop, and one is no longer alone to face the wrath of history. In Sikh theology, the 10 Gurus and then the Guru Granth Sahib form a continuing line of revelation or light, or Jyot. This idea of the Sangha that looks after its members, faces up to the forces of history, develops in time into the Khalsa, which not only protects against the tides of destruction, but has the power to reverse them. So the lament in the initial verses of the Baburwani is also answered by the realization in the end. History is a force that breaks society and social order, but it can be tamed to create a new form of society and new social orders which are just and founded on and empowered by Dharam. In a deeper sense, then, God is not completely absent. God is not completely absent in the face of human suffering. Suffering is a forge to make the weak and the helpless who look for help from outside strong enough to find strength within. That was Guru Nanak Dev Ji's agency which made us realize that. And the
Sial, I can jump in if you want to get some water or something. But I think, one thing that Sial's essays kind of made me think about as well, this was kind of related to Rupinder Viji's question about how can we apply this to our actual lives is, not waiting around for anyone to help us and stuff like that. And just kind of, not overtly complaining. And, there's always this like philosophical debate, especially in like the West, where, atheists will say like, well, if God's so good, why do good things happen to bad people? And, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's answer is like just simply, it's hukum. At the end of the day, you yourself unite, you yourself divide, right? All this stuff is, the human has to learn how to accept, right? At the end of the day. And we see this not just in the words and the bani of the Guru Sahib, right? We see this in the actions as well. And that's why it's so key. Guru Arjan Dev Ji sat on the Tati Tavi and, said, your will is sweet to me, right? Said that to Kalpuruk. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji as well, in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani, he describes his father's, Shahidi as Sees diya, but Sir na diya, right? Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji gave his head, but he did not give up his creed. He did not, Some people also translate that to he did not let out any complaint or anything. But either of those translations kind of show you that Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji willingly accepted, his shahidi, as have, so many other shaheeds across Sikh history. This is kind of, how we can look at bad things that happen to us in our lives, right? Whatever it is, if, someone says something really bad to you, or, all these things that ultimately seem kind of, fragile and not that important compared to the things that our Sikhs before were going through, but still, they still do kind of have an effect on the mind. We have to simply learn how to accept, right? And learn how to live within the will of Akal Purakh.
Any other questions or observations from anyone in the audience? Okay. Koi gal nahi. Sial or Mashan, should we end it? Amandeep Veere, kuch aur gal karni hai?
ਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲਸ ਤੇ ਬਾਣੀ ਤੇ ਚਾਨਣ ਪਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਰਹੀਏ ਸੋ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਬਹੁਤ ਥੈਂਕਸ ਜੀ
या दसो जो भी टॉपिकां दी गल करनी है ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੋਈ ਥੋੜੀ ਜੀ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਿਖਾਈਏ ਨਾ
ਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੇਦਬੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਥੋੜੀ ਜੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਡਿਸਟਰਬ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਆਕੂਪਾਈਡ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਅੱਗੋਂ ਵੀਰੇ ਸਲਾਹ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜੀ
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਓਕੇ ਸਿਆਲ
ਜੀ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਕੁਨਾਲ ਜੀ ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਜੀ ਮਨਸ਼ਾਨ ਵੀ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਰੇਲੇਜ ਤੇ ਇਵੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਵੀਅਸ ਹੋਏ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਨਿਕਲ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ ਟੌਪਿਕ
I think ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਲੰਬੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ I don't know, Kunal Sial.
So what we can do is ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਪੜੀਆਂ ਸੀ let me go back and kind of find them ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ maybe on how Sikh society functioned in terms of rehat and maryada and all that. I think that might be very fruitful. What do you think?
ਯੈਸ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਸੈਕੰਡਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ 78 ਤੋਂ 84 ਤੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਰੂਪ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਨ 82 12 ਸਰੂਪਸ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਤੋਂ ਉਹ ਅਗਨ ਭੇਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਬੇਦਬੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਐਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਬੇਦਬੀਆਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਸੌਰੀ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਕਿ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲ ਬੇਦਬੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਸੈਕਰੇਲੇਜ ਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਕੌਮ ਕਿਸੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਮੁੜੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਚੈੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਸ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰੀਏ
Hanji, yes, I think that's important. J broader discussion of the bare hundi hai, I think we should be doing it. So yeah, we will do that.
right thank you
Sial, koi aur gal karni si? Or Ranj Panji, did you want to ask anything?
Hello, thank you. I actually wanted to say that I'm really grateful for your shares today. And I think it's so valuable to speak on how to apply Sikhi into our lives from the teachings. Um, I did want to bring something up, and I wanted to ask. We were talking about history and how, the Gurus fought and represented for where there's wrongdoings. Yesterday something happened at Amritsar, right? And there was a comment that I posted under someone's comment who was actually happy that there was a death that had taken place of the person who was going into the Gurdwara and um, going after the acts that they were looking to do. To me, I feel like the teachings of the Guru is that he is in all. And I posted something to say that a death, like murder, was not the right answer. I wanted to just ask in regards to that, because I'm seeing a very split um, focus, and I see people full of hate, and I just now see Sikhi as that, and the application of what you guys are saying based on Hukum. I just wanted to understand that a little deeper if you guys had any thoughts.
I think just first looking at the breakdown of society that leads to that first, right? If we look at what we're looking at, what we're reading about today, which is Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji's Shahidi and his life in general, right? We see in the background that there is an empire that is, ruling India at that time. And under Aurangzeb, they have kind of reached this culmination of oppression, right? They are, breaking down temples. They are really trying to, either by incentives or by force, convert Hindus and anyone living in India to the faith of Islam, right? And that was part of the reason that they went to the Kashmiri Pandits as well, is because they knew that they were educated and that a lot of other Hindus and Indians would follow their lead. So when you see that kind of breakdown in society, that culminates, in Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji giving his head for Dharam. What eventually happens is, just one, there's going to be a lot of bad things that are just happening in general. There's probably going to be an increase in looting. And if we look at just, Galjok in general, which is, kind of the word that describes this era of kind of debauchery that we find ourselves in, that is, describing what is happening in India. It's probably describing the moral decay in human beings that we see even today. So when you see that type of breakdown, you're gonna see kind of probably an increase in vigilantism, right? And I'm not comparing the two, but if you look at the way Sikhs had to react in the 18th century, you know, we do kind of sugarcoat it when we present it to people, right? There was sometimes some very violent things that Sikhs had to do in order to deal with it. This situation is a bit different though, because no matter what people say about India right now, I don't think it's at the point of the 18th century under Abdali and Nadir Shah and all those people. But if you look at the breakdown in the legal system and all these things that had culminated in it, I'm not going to give a view of whether or not this was right or wrong, but you have all these instances of people trying to protest BLB peacefully and either being shocked or the BLB culprits, being handed to police and nothing happens because their handlers are either very powerful and, or the government themselves just doesn't want to do anything. So whether it's right or wrong, it's extremely hard, in my opinion, to kind of determine, because if you look at the situation that led up to it, that has very righteously angered people, I think, because of the inaction. I don't know. It's hard to kind of say, and I think a lot more research needs to be done in order to kind of formulate a specific Sikh perspective. But I don't think hating someone because of their point of view is very productive either. And I think it's kind of also odd to just kind of be like overly happy about what happened to him. Like at the end of the day, he probably was paid off, and maybe he was just trying to get some money for his family or something. So I don't know what the situation was. And yeah, the kind of overt happiness, especially, sitting in the diaspora and kind of probably not even having the capability of carrying out something like that. That is kind of weird to me. So
One thing that's important is I think we should always condemn gleeful kind of happiness at violence. So I think the way I see the situation is a little bit different. If the way I conceptualize it is Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the soul of the Guru. And I think other people have mentioned this, but the Guru Khalsa Panth is the body of the Guru. And so if you think of it, it's essentially self-defense. This person, he jumped, he grabbed a sword and was acting wildly. There's essentially kind of, we don't know what could have happened. The Maryada that the Khalsa follow is different than kind of what is used to in modern kind of secular society. And I agree with you to the point where people shouldn't be kind of, um, making light of it, making jokes of it, or being kind of bloodthirsty about it online. I think that's not the Sikh way. Um, True Dharam essentially means acting out of justice and not out of petty revenge or wanton violence. Um, and that's why even in our history, when a person attacks the Guru or attacks the Guru family, they punished the perpetrator themselves and not their family, not their collaterals, like the innocent women and children or other family members who had no issue with it. Sial, did you want to add anything?
Hanji, I think you guys have made great points, but मैं भी देखना कि look, see, there was an action, the incident of Bayadbi, and there was a reaction. Now, the nature of the action and how it affected the people there, Sangat there, that determined how they reacted. That was their choice. They made that choice, right? They got angry and they were justified maybe in their anger from their perspective, depending on ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ. So for someone who doesn't think of Guru Sahib in that way, Guru Granth Sahib is Guru Sahib's body and soul, right? For someone who doesn't think in that way, they will not be able to understand the anger, right? But if you see people who actually have that devotion, right? When and like Manshan said, it was an attack at that point of time, and that was the and just that angered people, and people reacted in the way that they did. So I think that was their choice, and for us to, of course, there's nothing to celebrate here. There's ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ भी हुई है. Ultimately, it's very distressing for us क्योंकि हुई है बेअदबी. And so I'm personally distressed because this has been going on for so long. कुछ हो नहीं रहा. There are other incidents of बेअदबी, so I don't see why people are celebrating and being joyful about this. We have to get together and find a permanent solution for this. And but again, this is from the perspective of Sikh theory and Sikh history. There are lots of ways that we could interpret this, but ultimately I leave it to that. That was the personal decision. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਰਮ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ decision ਲਿੱਤੀ ਉਸ time ਤੇ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ decision ਲਿੱਤੀ. And whether it's right or wrong is for them to judge and for Guru Sahib to say. But as Manshan said, that in our history there are precedents that when such actions happen, then a violent counter reaction happens to that. So that's there in Sikh history. So people who take such actions, who provoke Sikhs, should understand that when push comes to shove, then Sikhs can act and they will act according to their own precedent and their own way of resolving these problems if the constitutional system doesn't work and doesn't work as it is supposed to. As Manshan remembered, as Manshan said, I remember that there has been an ongoing morcha for this, right? So people protested peacefully for so long. I mean, they were sitting there, they were asking the government, they were asking the police, they were asking the political class to act and do something about Bayadbi incidents. Close to 300, and now they're close to 700 Bayadbi incidents. And ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਚਲਾਤੀਆਂ and 2 people were killed therefore peacefully protesting for the police to take action, right? So can you imagine what's going on in the mind of people? ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਕਰਨ ਲੋਕ? I mean I think ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਦ ਸਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਿਕਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤਾਂ you have to you get angry and you can't decide uh, I mean, we sitting outside can't determine whether it's right or wrong. So I think those are my views on that. So again, I find the sort of the gleeful celebration and people sharing memes and pictures, I find that distasteful because ultimately it's distressing. But I'll leave it at that. Yeah, those are my views. Anji.
I really appreciate you guys' insights. Thank you so much. You've given me some other spaces to think from.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for the.
I just want to say something about why Beadbi is so important for us. Why it's such a flashpoint, and why the reaction to Beadbi is so important for us. Because look, we've been talking about invasions, we've been talking about history, we've been talking about conquerors. So each conqueror, from Babur to Aurangzeb, when they came in, they were actively destroying temples, they were destroying idols, they were building mosques in place of those idols. And the Sikh Sangat, the Sikh Panth, saw that. They saw the passive acceptance of people of their own oppression, and even collaboration of some of those people with their oppressors, right? And Sikhi was born as a reaction to that. I mean, it was born. It was consciously molded as a reaction to that. That would be a better way to put it. That no, we are not going to accept this passive acceptance and collaboration with people who are destroying our symbols of faith, our places of worship. We're not going to accept that. And people who do beadbi, people who desecrate these temples, these holy places, we are going to react against them, and we are going to forge a community that is going to destroy them if they do that. So Beadbi is the core, and resistance to Beadbi, resistance and destruction of holy places, is the core of resistance of the Sikh Panth, right? I mean, that is what the Sikh Panth does. We protect our places of worship, protect our sangat, and if the need comes to do that, methods and precedents are there for us to do it. And I think ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਆ ਕਹੇ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹ ਅਸਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਅਸਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਉਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਅਸਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣੇ ਹੀ ਆ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਨੇ. We accept to an extent, we work, we do diplomacy. Like we saw Guru Sahib's doing diplomacy with the Mughal state, right? Guru Sahib's writing to the emperor, trying to negotiate and getting them to act. But if that doesn't work, then Sikhs do what Sikhs are forged to do, right? And ultimately we saw that happening. But also that karuna and daya is an important part of Sikhi. We don't celebrate when we are forced to do something like that. One wants to be violent, one wants to do uh, take a life, but when it's done, and that is karni apo apni jinne kitta hai te oda karam hai. Yeah.
I think also really quick, like, in this case and the other case that has come out recently, we don't have all the facts yet either. We have some video footage, but what resulted after that, is not, to my understanding, on video. So, if this was even intentional, I think that's kind of still in question, or if it was kind of still, if it was just kind of in the heat of the moment. So that too, I think, is still in question. It's hard to kind of draw a lot of conclusions on this without knowing all the facts, in my opinion. But yeah, for sure, what he did was very much. It was definitely Bayat at the end of the day. The Maryada of Darbar Sahib, of Harmandir Sahib, has been in place since Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and violating that is considered like a very big deal to the Sikh nation.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here.
I don't know why it stopped. I'm trying to figure it out. They were pretty much ended, I think. So there's 8 minutes left. I was doing this experiment of trying to stream Sikh History Book Club. Hopefully you can hear me still. I don't think the recording's working, but I'm going to end it right here. Hopefully try and stream it live next time. All right. I don't know why it stopped. I'm trying to figure it out. They were pretty much ended, I think. So there's 8 minutes left.